Regina Davis-Moss, President and CEO of In Our Own Voice, National Black Women's Reproductive Justice Agenda, and welcome back to our second I'm an RJ Voter panel. Today, our discussion is focused on voting in the South, and I've gathered some amazing reproductive justice leaders from Georgia, Louisiana, and Tennessee for our panel. Today, you're going to find out also how you can plug into our RJ Voter Initiative wherever you are. So throughout today's discussion, I encourage you to join the conversation by sharing your thoughts and questions in the comments. With that, let's get into it. The first panelist I'd like to bring to the screen is Sharice. Sharice, tell us a little bit about yourself and where we can find more.
Sure. Hey, y'all. So Sharice Scott, CEO and founder of Sister Reach, located in Memphis, Tennessee. We are a reproductive and sexual justice organization working with a four-pronged strategy of education, policy and advocacy, culture change, and harm reduction. You can learn more about our work at www.sisterreach.org. And for those who are in the Tennessee area, you definitely can find out more about us here locally in Memphis. We work on the local, state, and national level, and we are a partner of In Our Own Voice, National Black Reproductive Justice Agenda.
Great. And so we'll be bringing on the other panelists a little bit later. But Sharice, I just want to ask you, it's a lot going on right now. In Our Own Voice, we do these polls in front of every major election and inflection points in our history. And so one of the findings from our most recent poll indicated that young Black adults may feel particularly unmotivated to vote. I mean, we hear this all the time. I don't even really like repeating this because it makes it seem as if it doesn't, we know that Black women in particular are the largest voting constituency in our electorate, and we carry a lot of these elections on our back. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, about 38% of the 18 to 29-year-olds in our poll, that's both men and women, indicated that they're almost certain to vote. So we got to do something about that almost 60% this fall. But one in four in this group said they considered not voting as a form of protest. Mm-hmm. So, I know this is a barrier for us. I think it really speaks more to disillusionment, maybe with the particular choices that are available to us. But what I also like to lift up, about 72% of those young voters still feel that the Black community has the power to change elections. So that says to me we need to be leaning more into that engagement. But I want to hear more about some of the unique barriers in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Tell me some of the barriers those residents are facing and how your organization is addressing those challenges.
Yeah, I appreciate you lifting up how young people, our young adults, are feeling right now about the election. We're actually coordinating a town hall with young people, young adults between the ages of 18 and 24, because we really do want to understand what's important to them. What is it that they are hesitant about? We cannot ignore what is happening in our world right now. We cannot ignore, the things that are important to young people, to young advocates and activists. I think that's something that we need to be really mindful of, is that we've been socially socialized, if you will, around justice work, around advocacy, especially during COVID-19 with George Floyd. The world started to participate in the justice movement, right? And so I think that it's really important to consider the fact that they care about what is happening, not just here on the national level, but they also care about what is happening globally. So we can't ignore what's happening in Palestine and between Palestine and Israel. We can't ignore what's happening in Sudan. We can't ignore what's going on in the Congo. These are things that are super important to them. The environment is important to them. Social security is important to them. This is what we're hearing, but we want to bring young people together so that we can hear a little bit more about how they feel. We don't want to dismiss it at all because they are young adults. I think that we absolutely need to be paying attention. But other things that are happening here in our state, of course, gun reform is a big issue happening here in Tennessee. Our governor has signed the abortion trafficking bill into law here. So, especially young people, as a matter of fact, are concerned about what that looks like. Parents are concerned. And that bill basically says that as long as that minor has consent from one of their parents or guardians, and or the state, because the state could operate as a guardian as well. That's the only reason that they could cross state lines to get abortion care. So like that's one of the things that is kind of happening, and we're having this type of conversation right now. Criminalization of HIV is another important piece that's happening here in our state. So we've seen over the last 5-6 years a lot of gerrymandering. Districts have been like shut down, especially districts where Democrats were running that district, right? So we continue to see what's happening between Justin Pearson and Justin Jones on the Hill, and the constant kind of attack to remove the both of them from their seats, right? And Representative Justin Jones in particular fighting tooth and nail to continue to maintain his seat, and his constituency wanting him to stay there. So, though we are a 501c3 and we are a nonpartisan organization, we still are watching what is happening in the world, right? And we're watching what is happening in our state. We're watching what happens, even now, like protests, have there is a kind of a criminal element to protesting in Tennessee now. These different kind of issues that are going on. So the gerrymandering is interesting. I think that the other pieces that we're hearing is that people are poor, people are being evicted, people are jobless or underemployed. There are just so many other things that are going on in the state right now that have our attention as a reproductive and sexual justice organization. And because of that, we are trying our best to attend to those things. So housing is top of mind and definitely a part of our focus right now. Food sustainability is a focus right now, making sure that people have access to harm reduction kits, because people, it is skyrocketing the use of drugs and alcohol in our state right now because of the stressors of life that is happening as well. So we're paying attention to that, as well as, we have some new statistics that just came out that Memphis in particular has the highest growing number of new HIV transmission rates right now. So, we've got a lot going on in our state that we are trying to leverage, as well as a couple town halls that we have scheduled to have conversations about some of what we have been discussing with legislators, and trying to educate them about what the Black community in particular in our state is navigating, as well as having constituents themselves to speak up and talk on their own behalf. And so that we've been doing that work also. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting what's happening. It's very disheartening. However, I think that both our young adults as well as those of us who've been living on the margins understand how crucial this election is. And so I've not necessarily heard a sentiment of, the voting is kind of touch and go right now, right? Mm-hmm. But it is, people are concerned about what would happen, if we have a Christian nationalist controlled country. Right. So that's also what we're hearing, because we are down here in the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Thanks for that. And wants to remind you again, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. While we're checking that chat, let's bring in Dion from Louisiana. Hey, Dion.
Hey, y'all. I apologize for being late, but it wouldn't be New Orleans if we didn't have bad weather.
Yes. Well, tell them a little bit about Women with a Vision and where they can find out what you're doing.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. My name is Dion Haywood, and I'm the executive director at Women with a Vision here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Women with a Vision this year is our anniversary year. It's our 35th year of being around doing this work. And we are a reproductive justice organization with a focus on voter engagement and harm reduction, HIV prevention. And we also have a Young Women with a Visions program and a very vibrant anti-criminalization program as well. And if you want to find out anything about us, the best way to do that is at our website, www.NOLA.com. And we're on Instagram, WWAV NOLA. Yeah, I feel like if you Google us, it will come right up.
And you know what? If they look right below you, they can find your information. We've got it on
Oh,
the
look at that.
screen.
Look at that. Thank
Yes.
y'all for helping me out.
The
Hi,
power of
Sharif.
the power of technology. You know what?
Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned voter engagement. One of the things that came up, we just talked about the poll, and Sharice did a great job of talking about some of the issues around voter, what we say, this idea that Black voters are not really motivated to vote. But, I will tell you, as you know, in our polls, that some of the issues that were top of mind to us was issues like democracy and free and fair elections and voting rights. That has become incredibly obvious that there are attempts to dismantle those rights for us, especially our older respondents in this poll lifted that up. 81% prioritize making sure our elections are free from political interference.
Hmm.
And this, as you know, the concern around integrity in our electoral process underscores the impact of these legislative changes on the ground. Um, how have voting rights and access to voting polls and all those things evolved in your state? And what are you seeing on the ground down there in terms of fighting against that?
So one of the things that we have going on, one thing that's kind of different when I'm looking at elections across the country, especially in the last few national and large, just paying attention to what's happening everywhere else, which we all should be doing that, um, is that we really don't have problem at our polls. Not in Orleans Parish, not in Baton Rouge, not in Shreveport and Lafayette, which would be the larger cities. But people, there are people, they've stopped. You can't give out food, you can't give out water, you can't give out those kind of things. Exist in some places, but not particularly in the larger cities here in New Orleans, the more well-known cities. One of the things we have been fighting up, and I would be remiss not to bring up Ashley Shelton in the Power Coalition. We are a partner of the Power Coalition, one of the founding members partners, and she's had and making sure we had two Black districts represented in voting, which local, not local, but this current administration with Governor Landry, they were doing everything they could not to create those maps, not to draw the maps, but the court has said make it happen, and so we're excited about that happening. One of the things we see here, though, is there's a mixture of people who are motivated, but people who are not, right?
Mhm.
I think that when it comes to where you can go vote, early voting, there's a lot of education and push going on right about that, and a lot of people do. And then you have tons of people who, like there's so many churches involved. Y'all know how that go in the South. I could walk to the church where I
Yes.
vote. My mother can walk to the church in her neighborhood where her and most of my family vote. So it's still possible. I think the biggest thing we're doing is, I think what is also to keep people from having problems at the polls when they go is if you go to City Hall, um, even if you don't have an ID, they're supposed to let you vote here. So that is possible. Like,
Mhm.
as long as you have some kind of identifier. And it also helps. It may sound backhanded to some, but like the women where I go vote, they're old enough to be my grandmother, and they've been doing this for forever. So they remember you. They remember your children. Oh, your mom and them came early. Your cousin came. They came early this morning. So and so haven't been here yet. And people really, I think people are comfortable with people who are familiar with them, because that's, I think, of the way Black people organize is, we like the familiar. We like people who
Yeah.
know us and know our routine. So that's a positive, but it doesn't mean that the administration that we had this year and even the one prior, the new administration, the one prior, are not coming up with ways to block people or encourage people to feel unmotivated to show up at the polls. That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that thing about how we organize. Relational organizing is what we call it, right? So we call our friends, our family. I love how they said, "Well, I didn't see your cousin here or Big Mama here," right? So we
Yeah,
say, you know, let's get on the phone. Wherever do I need to come pick you up? You need to vote.
yeah,
So we want to make sure we're doing that. Even maybe you have been incarcerated and you may not be able to vote, but you definitely can talk to your family members and all those other people to make sure that they turn out to vote. And if at the very least, educate them on the issues, right?
yeah. And
Um,
that's one of the things that we do at Women with a Vision, because we have so many people who are formerly incarcerated or who've been to like what most would like the local jail. They don't even realize because you did 3 months don't mean you can't vote. You absolutely
mhm,
can. And was it a
mhm,
misdemeanor versus a felony? So just making sure that people have the information that if they're going to show up, they can, and they do so with confidence because now they understand. We've met so many, especially women that have been a part of our programs that we've worked with in their 40s who never voted because they thought that they had been to jail so many times that they couldn't. And so
mhm.
making sure we dispel all the myths is one of the biggest things that we do in our voter engagement work.
Okay, thanks. This is great information. I want to shift a little bit to getting more into those different priorities. We say all the time that Black women do not live single issue lives, and we are not monoliths, right? So,
Right.
you working with various age groups in your community. Tell me a little bit about some of the key issues that you're hearing them talk about and how you're
Uh,
getting behind supporting that.
So I think the biggest thing now is the economy, childcare, um, being able to afford rent. There was a time when people used to move to New Orleans because it was so affordable. Um, uh, I think to me, those are the biggest things is work. How am I going to work? How am I not trapped in the system, which contrary to popular belief, most people feel trapped in the system. If I have 2 kids, 3 kids, or more, and I depend on Section 8 or food stamps, SNAP, um, yet I can't get childcare assistance. And this year, we've literally had to fight with our governor around accepting childcare assistance and making that available and possible for people. The biggest thing we're dealing with right now is housing, uh, the economic landscape, healthcare, and education. I would say those are pretty big things, especially in a place like Louisiana where we rank first and last for all the worst things, right? We have a governor that denied I want to say it was like $24 million in SNAP assistance for the summer for kids to add, and really most people don't realize it's just $40 at $40 added to
Mm,
whatever their current SNAP benefits are for kids. But as always, community will jump in. We have local chefs who are like doing family meals. They got volunteers to deliver in areas where are kind of like food deserts, but making sure that everybody is jumping in to do what the government is supposed to be doing for us in this country. And I think that's what people don't get is that this is what they're supposed to do.
mm.
We're not asking, we're not begging. It's a part of what the government should be doing for its people, especially on the local level, right? Yeah, so I would say those are the issues. And of course, when I say health, I'm sure everybody has heard that when it comes to health, we're not just talking about birthing justice or making sure that pregnant people have access. We're talking about all of it. Like people can't get just the most basic things. And once he got in office, so many people are being thrown off the Medicaid rolls, right? And so, yeah, those are probably the most difficult things.
I'm really glad you brought that up because reproductive health, things like ending the Black maternal health crisis, ensuring access to maternal mental health, Medicaid expansion, those were also important issues.
Yeah,
But I think really that what that speaks to is what we always talk about is intersectionality. So,
Absolutely.
Therese, can you tell us a little bit about what intersectionality is and how it's playing a role in the work you do, particularly when advocating for reproductive justice?
Sure. Well, we teach that intersectionality has been here since the beginning of time, but we formally know the term coined by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw and her work to describe the ways that multiple oppressions impact the lives of Black women, right? But intersectionality is a framework in and of itself, but it is the vehicle in which we describe the ways that not only multiple oppressions, but opportunities for abundance can also operate in the lives of human beings that we serve, and just in general, right? So thinking about intersectionality kind of at the intersection, or our work at the intersection of voting rights, I think that people are concerned about being forced to birth. Right. I think people are, and so that's kind of how I'm switching our language up here at Sister Reach. Once upon a time, we were lifting it up in a very deeply centered anti-abortion language. But at this point, we're at forced birth language, because we're in the South, we are in an abortion ban state. And so now we're thinking about it in this way. So what does it look like for people to be able to access birth control? Sister Reach, Women with a Vision, Sister Love, Black Women for Wellness, Sister Song. So many of us have been at that table and did the work to help to get and other reproductive justice organizations in our country work so hard alongside public health officials and researchers to get the oral contraceptive over the counter, right? So now the O pill we've made it through the FDA, and the O pill is now becoming available for people. So that's also some of the work that Black women made possible in this country. Meanwhile, though, right, at the intersection of forced birth and cutting off access to birth control in different states is scary, right? So not only are we seeing a situation where, folks don't have access to abortion care to think about if and when they want to expand their families with that particular healthcare service, but we also have instances of even hearing about white women in Tennessee not being able to access birth control, while Black and brown women and pregnant capable folks in the state are also still being pushed IUDs, right? So there's still population control happening, right? And so when folks are kind of thinking about families and thinking about their ability to make decisions about their families, these are the things that are kind of becoming top of mind for people. These are the things that we're putting on people's radar in a very real way, including parental rights, because I don't know if we're truly paying attention to what is happening to parental rights right now. Right. And this is bigger than that abortion trafficking bill right now. This is about, if you are found with drugs in your system, they're taking your children. If you can't afford to keep a roof over their head, they're taking your children. Right. If your child doesn't go to school, regardless of whether or not y'all got somewhere to stay, or that child is on their period or whatever, it becomes a criminal offense that leads to them taking your children. So, I think that for me is something that's so important. Some of the harm reduction work that we are focusing on right now helps to support mothers and families, right? Children to stay with their parents. And so that part for us is really important. So folks are thinking about, just like Dion said, some of those intersectional issues are still wrapped around access to healthcare, and not just access to healthcare, but I think that we also need to be paying attention to what insurance companies are denying, how long it's taking to get your medication, right? I am on a couple of different prescription drugs that I've had to wait on a lapse, right? Regardless of what it would do to my health, just for the health insurance company to say, okay, we're going to approve her to get this. And so that is happening around the country. And some drugs for some folks it's a life and death not to get that drug, right? I just literally had to make the case to Walgreens about why I needed some of my medication a little earlier. That's because it take y'all too long to give me my medicine. I shouldn't have to have a pause, right? So imagine that heart patient, or that cancer patient, or that HIV patient, right? Think about those folks who are living on the margins and just don't necessarily have those resources to get their medication, right? So healthcare in a state that still has not expanded Medicaid is problematic. That's a reproductive and sexual justice issue that is the top of mind at the intersection of voting rights that people need to be concerned about, right? Our governor denied the HIV, federal HIV funding, right? So folks who are living with HIV in our state are terrified, and some are calling for support, right? In the meantime, forfeited the Title X money, right?
Yes.
Just trying to control folks being able to access gender affirming care or abortion care, just being a referral, right? Not, at this point. So those types of issues are still happening, kind of at those intersections that are really concerning people, right? But because we Black women, we're not going to not talk about, critical race theory, the impact on our public school system. The majority of the people that we serve depend on the public school system, a system that does not teach a Black child about their Black selves. And that's a problem. So our education reform folks, I think that we're all starting to merge our work because we see how important it is. So the intersectionality for RJ is that, there are folks around the state here in Tennessee. We're all coming together to fight on one or two or three or four issues that we think is important because we're all serving the same people, or it is impacting all of our lives at that same kind of a thought process and intersection. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So you said so much in that. You even mentioned.
Y'all know we're gonna talk.
Right. No, I mean it in the way
in our own voice on here, baby.
No, I'm just saying that was so concise, and I hope people picked up what you were saying. But we'll come back to it. But I wanted to also lift up. You talked about that over the counter. Yes, it was a win for us, right? But when we look at how much a 3-month supply is, that's almost $50.
Yeah.
We did the
research on that. Only pill.
Yeah, we did the research on that. We can't afford. A lot of people can't afford that, right? No. So even when we pass these policies, they're still out of reach. Yeah. And so that's why it's important for, just because we get it doesn't mean we stop there. Then we got to go back and look at, does this work for us?
But this is I'm sorry. This is why the issue of intersectionality is so important. Mm-hmm. It kind of brings to bear that everything you said, everything Sharice, many of us have said, and who it's like, who gonna get it? That really like there's a lot of times we're talking to each other like who gonna get it?
Right.
Who's gonna get it? If people are struggling with rent and food and having their basic needs met, I cannot afford monthly $50 on a birth control pill.
Yeah.
So it still becomes it's still an issue of the have and have nots.
Mm-hmm.
Who sits at a level where they can do that, and so many people in our communities and the communities we serve can't do that. And it wouldn't be me if I didn't say that what's interesting is white women are starting to see, they really don't like me either.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to be funny. It's a reality. Like forever, as long as I can remember, it's been us over here and them over there. And now they see that you stood over there when you kind of should have been not an ally, but an accomplice to the work of Black women over here. That's all I'm going to say, Regina. Go ahead.
Two things I want to do before we bring Dazon on. I don't think people really understand what it's like to live in a state with an abortion ban. You talk to these people every day. Just give me like a story of what it really is like. Because some people think, what's the big deal? You just go to the next state. But it's not that simple, right?
Mm-hmm. Listen, so I'm going to say this real quick. And I've said it before, but I'm going to go ahead and say it again for anybody who hasn't heard me say this, is the other side, the people who live who thrive off of white supremacy and the way we are treated in this country, and particularly in the South. I'm not saying it doesn't happen everywhere, but I want people to realize that criminalization is very easy here in the
Mm-hmm.
South
Mm-hmm.
because it's a norm, right?
Mhm.
Right now in Louisiana, so many of us who've been a part of changing a lot of laws and policies that criminalize and keep people from accessing and wanting and getting their basic needs, and just really life interrupted kind of laws is what I call it sometimes. Um, they're using that same tactic now with this abortion ban, stopping people when they're driving, police harassing people, stopping people and asking them, where are you going? And having a then attorney general, now our governor, say he will use every single tool
Mm-hmm.
that he can and every access he has to state police to target people. So something is as simple as, oh, I saw a white woman driving a black woman. Black woman was in a passenger seat, and this white woman was driving. I'm stopping them. And I don't have to remind people what risk for people's lives that puts them at being stopped by police.
Yes.
Um, uh, and having women needing to have an abortion, not being able to access one, and almost dying. We're hearing more and more stories about that. I was so sick that I passed out at home, um, trying to, just being sick because they need it and can't get it. Where the stories are becoming, at first you heard one or two or three, now we're hearing a couple a week. Are you still having women call? If we're discussing the pregnant people that we work with, then they don't have access, and they also don't have the privilege to drive out anywhere. And how much time would it take you to drive to New Mexico? Florida is no
Yeah,
longer an option.
right.
And so,
It's not just one state. It's not 100 miles, right?
no, 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 it's not. And who's getting on a plane? Who's gonna watch your kids while you're on the plane?
Right.
Who's gonna hold down your job while you leave here? And who
Yeah.
says you have a job that you can get off to do so? And
Yes.
so in states that have like full bans like we do here, and now with the criminalization of abortion drugs in Louisiana, I'm just waiting for that to hit the fan. And I mean, there are ways, I don't think I want to talk about it in this open forum, but there are ways that we're figuring out for people to navigate that.
Yeah.
Um, and I can share later. I'd even prefer to share in an email versus online like this. But now, yet again, we have to figure out a way that we're going to have to keep people safe from something else and a deeper
Yes.
way of being criminalized.
Yes. Yes.
Which is what Black women have always done, right? We've never
Always.
been
And
able
we're
to
going to,
rely on anybody to protect us, right?
all the
And then
time.
it's always our gift to everyone else after we figured it out.
That part. That part.
So let me bring Dazon in. Dazon is founder and president of Sister Love Incorporated. Hey, Dazon.
Hey.
Hey, Regina. Hey, Dion. Hey, Cherise. Hey,
Hey.
everybody. My apologies. I am in the lovely lobby with the lovely agent trying to get my car since I
In the
can't get
money
my
room,
bag. I'm
though.
just trying to get home, y'all. I'm just trying to get home to my house. That's and be with you all in the meantime. So thanks, Regina.
Well,
Sorry, it might be a little noisy. Certainly not the cutest I've been after 15 hours on a plane.
you know what?
But hey,
Well, you always cute for the struggle. Tell us a little bit more about Sister Love and where they can find out more about you and your organization.
sure. Sure, and thank you. I've been loving hearing what Sharice and Dion have been putting down. This is awesome conversation. So, Sister Love is a 35-year-old sexual and reproductive health rights and justice organization. We're based in Atlanta, Georgia. We also have Sister Love International South Africa that's based in Johannesburg, where we're 25 years old this year. And we do intersectional approaches around sexual health in particular, reproductive health by intersections, with a heavy lens on HIV and STIs and gender-based violence, as well as access to abortion and contraception for Black women, particularly in the South, or for my stance in Atlanta, in the state of Georgia. And interesting, different challenges, but still challenges along the same fronts here in South Africa.
Great.
The what we do in that work. Yeah, just to what we do in that work.
You know, you're kind of breaking up.
When I say we take
You're breaking up a
intersectional
little bit. So
approaches as well, as we are a service provider providing HIV, STI, pregnancy testing, counseling, linkage. I'm sure the network. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now, Regina?
I can hear you. I can hear
Network's
you, but
going in and out.
you're in a little bit of a delay. So let me give you the question,
How
a
about
couple of
now?
questions. You can we can hear you. Let me ask you a few
It might do
questions.
better.
No,
It
you're good.
it
You're good.
might
I'm
do
going to
better
ask
if I'm in audio just for a minute.
you're coming through. What I'd
Okay.
like to do is give you a couple of questions. I want to hear a little bit more about
Okay.
Georgia. We were talking about our poll.
Okay.
We've been talking about the importance of voting rights and election integrity. We know there's a whole lot of efforts in Georgia focusing on elections. And our poll said in Georgia in particular, 87% of respondents prioritize ensuring that elections are free from political interference. And as W.E.B. Du Bois once said, as the South goes, so goes the nation. As we approach another critical election cycle, what advice would you give to the Southern voters to ensure their voices are heard and their votes have the maximum impact? Yeah,
That's
and that
true.
yeah, it's because she's in South Africa. There's a little bit of a delay, so just give Days a moment.
And thanks for the question, Regina. It is without doubt that, I mean, Georgia is now a swing state, right? And so there's no doubt. Yeah, I apologize. So I'm going to try and go a little slower. Can you
Yes.
hear me okay, Regina?
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to turn the camera off to hopefully limit the delay. All I was saying is Georgia is a swing state now. And so we recognize the role that our vote plays that goes beyond our local politics, goes beyond our state politics, because what we do in Georgia will matter for the nation. And in particular, I think what we have in front of us are three things that Georgians need to pay attention to. One, because they try to do funny things with the rolls, don't just check to make sure that you are registered. Make sure you have your voter card that's current. Make sure that you check often, because sometimes people are removed from the rolls without them even knowing in the state of Georgia. We've got an attorney, we've got a secretary of state who is consistently hell bent on purging the rolls. And we also have a governor and a state of Georgia that has not played fair in the last several elections with regard to equal access to voting. The second thing is to make sure that you are planning your way to vote, whether it's by absentee or in person, early voting or day of. Have a plan and have a backup plan, because best believe with this very important election, there'll be all kinds of shenanigans people are trying to pull to keep you away from your vote. Make sure you take people with you. Take your family, take your friends. Don't just tell them to go together. Make sure that you're bringing the numbers, because it is the numbers that we can show up with our power. And then the last thing, which actually probably should be the first thing, is to vote your values. Know what people are already standing for, even if they're incumbents. Know what their voting record has been. Know how they stand with you. And why can I tell you that's important? I am in a state General Assembly district where we elected a Democrat Black woman in my district 4 years ago, who halfway through her term switched parties on a 98% blue district. So it's very important to know not only who you're voting for, but how they have voted for you.
Mhm. Yeah, that's we talk about that a lot in terms of focus on the issues, not the candidates, right? Because people will say what they want to say or what they think they want you to hear. to get elected. I want to go back to that issue around the safety and how Black women are feeling in this
That's
current
right.
moment.
Hmm.
We are, and this is to all the panelists, our poll also lifted this up. We are feeling, even considering maybe not even having children at all, or maybe even not continue to expand our families. Thinking about, maybe I shouldn't live in the state where I live, as if that's really even an option, right? We live where we can afford to live, right? But these are additional stresses for us when this should be some of the joyous times of our lives. And so I just want to talk a little, can you tell me a little bit more about what you're hearing around the sense of safety for Black women in your communities? Sharice.
Sure. Safety. Folks are not feeling so safe. You know what I mean? I mean, seriously, like people are concerned, and I'm sure that now, because of the bill that just got signed into law, now we're going to have to kind of do a bit of education on the ground about what it actually means versus what folks perceive it mean. I think that as far as safety, folks are not only kind of concerned about reproductive health issues, but just what does it look like with like violence that is happening, especially in low income communities right now? Because I think what we're also seeing is there's been this like surge of disinvestment in low income communities in our state. Those communities here in Memphis are predominantly Black. We're a predominantly African American city here, so we're seeing folks, of course, being pushed out into the suburbs, and other folks, white folks, being moving into the city. So people are concerned about like safety. Where just thinking about like the amount of police patrol that is happening in Black communities right now. Young people are out of school now, so more time to be outside, and the things that young people get into during the summertime, especially in predominantly Black or all Black cities for the most part in this country. The summertime is when things truly pop off as far as violence, crime, murder, those types of things. So, like these are issues that our folks are really concerned about. But is there more like specific safety pieces that you mean, or?
No, I mean, this was an issue. This was lifted up in our poll. I mean, It means a little different. Some people are concerned about criminalization related to pregnancy or miscarriage, or so there's just a general sense of
that part for sure is also going on. I'm so sorry to lose that in the question. Yes, and so absolutely, people are. Everybody's looking at what happened to Brittany Watts in Cleveland, right? People are they're watching, what and let's be clear, we have to go back to even here in Tennessee. Makes me bring up Anna Yoka, right? Who was a white woman right outside of Nashville who basically self-aborted, and that she's still in prison. Let's be clear, okay? So and this was way before. This is when Roe was still standing, right? So people are very concerned about what all of this means, and I think that especially those who are thinking about utilizing a medication abortion pill in order to have an abortion. I mean, what we already knew was that folks are going to still figure out how to have an abortion with or without this law. Absolutely. I think at this point, people are concerned about, so what happens if I go to the hospital, right, and I'm hemorrhaging, or if I'm having a miscarriage, especially down here in Memphis, for example, where we have some of the highest Black maternal morbidity rates. We have a lot of miscarriages that happen, high infant mortality. So miscarriages for Black women in the South is something that's always been an issue. Mm-hmm. So at the intersection of criminalization and it just being supposed that she has intentionally tried to abort her child, or that pregnant, capable person intentionally trying to abort their kid, that's going to be a problem, right? This continues to put Black women in particular under the radar for being profiled by law enforcement. We worked really hard, to educate people about the DA race that caused us to have the DA that we have here in Memphis right now. But because that white man will not prosecute Black people at the rate that white people want to see him do, just a couple of counties over, the DA has written a letter to the governor to say, step into Memphis because their DA won't do the work. In other words, step in because he ain't putting enough Black folks in prison. Right. So people are concerned, and this kind of authoritarian nature that's happening across the country, but definitely in the South, because we got it before everybody else got it. See, so this authoritarianism is not new for us in the South. It's new for Chicago, it's new for Detroit. You know what I'm saying? It's new for LA. It's not new for us, right? We've been seeing this type of behavior. They've been doing this for a long time with us. And so now they're just even more emboldened. And on the heels of what could potentially be a Republican president, right? They're fearless. So the ways that criminalization is happening, in our state right now, or this kind of growing criminalization. And I just for the sake of, because I think it's important, because our people many times think that just because the person might be a Democrat, they're the safe vote. What I do want to say, because I think it's really important, especially for our Southern voters, is just as important to hold Democratic nominees accountable on the state and the local level, right? Because we are seeing Democrats in the South vote conservatively. So there was a Democrat here in our state who voted for it, who crafted a criminalization bill around HIV, right? So I'm not letting her off the hook because she's Black, and I'm not letting her off the hook because she's a Democrat, right? So that being said, we've got to think about all of the points of entry that we are allowing, violence to occur in our community. So it's super important, if we're going to think about being a reproductive justice voter, that we are being just as critical of everyone, right? And we're not just leaving it to chance that just because, they are the progressive nominee or the supposed progressive nominee, because I don't even know we can use the word anymore at this point, that just means that they get our vote. We got to make sure, we got to hold our people accountable, especially for Black women, especially because we are the most influential voting constituency. We have to hold them all to the fire so that we will be protected in this country, so that we will be protected in the South. Right. And that includes the ways that criminalization continues to be an issue, and safety continues to be an issue on the local and the state level. But now even the growing fear that this is going to be a federal issue for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, you say it so nicely.
Y'all know I'll be going off. I'm sorry.
I know, no, I love it, and it's so necessary.
Right. Yeah.
Sharice is absolutely right about the South, right? And so our communities have always been under attack. And when I say our communities, I'm talking about all Black people in all its forms, for the LGBTQ community at large, for Black women, for Black men, no matter how you want to separate us. The use of criminalization has always been a tactic used in Southern states. So our communities have always been under attack, and the playbook is always the same. And it's the forces, really, at the end of the day, it's the forces of white supremacy to isolate, blame, criminalize, destabilize, erase, and take. That is their long-standing playbook. And one of the things I feel like I've tried to say more often is what we are seeing now was in place before people like us was doing this work, going so hard. The reforms that people were enjoying were because so many people was on the ground doing the work to change that. And we had a little moment of euphoria where we thought it was all good. But some of us knew that it wasn't enough to change what could happen once somebody else got in office. Many of us have always known that. And so when I think about what's happening around criminalization, I also want to ask Black folk and people of color, but more importantly, Black folk, to let's learn to hold ourselves accountable in what we are asking for. And that's why it's so important to educate yourself on these issues. We will elect a conservative Democrat thinking they're going to be on our side. And then we learn that they vote conservatively, just like Republicans, right? During the Clinton administration, people talk about what Clinton did, but make no mistake, Black leaders asked for that bill. We asked for that level of control and pure terror that happened in many of our communities, right? So we need to be educated on what are we what are we really asking for, and what do we want? Yes, we all want to be safe. Yes, we all want to come home to our homes and feel like our home is safe, our children are safe, and nothing is going to happen. So I want to say this quickly. Governor Landry has made it legal to have a handgun, to carry a gun with no permit, no training, no permit, no nothing. Just carry a gun. Now, people like me see that as, oh, this is a trap. This is a trap. So you can have it anywhere you want to go. When in Louisiana, we already have open carry laws, right? And so now he's created a law to tell people you can carry a gun anywhere. What you think the setup is for young Black men or young Black women who they perceive to be, if their lives feel like in danger? Or Sharice, the same thing happening in Tennessee is happening here. And this is why I always say the playbook hasn't changed. Here he is putting state police now in Orleans Parish to help patrol the French Quarter, the downtown areas, and to assist local police. None of those things are going to keep us safe. At the end of the day, you know who keep us safe? Us.
Yes.
Keeping us safe. If you're worried about crime, talk to your neighbors. If you're worried about crime or you feel like you don't have those kind of neighbors, find a neighbor that you can talk to, or start organizing on your front porch, organizing your driveway. But you have to talk to the people closest to you about your safety, because those are the people. How many of us have neighbors that be like, girl, somebody passed by your house and I don't know who it was?
Yep. With a ring camera.
Right. You know, I tell people, if you can squeeze it in, get you a ring camera. Get you one. But, and also, we are the people who are going to keep us safe. These people will never keep us safe, ever. That's not their job, really. They believe it is, but they're not, and they don't show up for us in that way. So the ways that we've seen, I'm going to say this again because I think it's important, just somebody who may have not heard me say this, the same tactics they use on the war on drugs in the late 80s on down throughout the 2000s, that same playbook that took Black men, that decimated our communities, is now going to be done to pregnant women, to pregnant people. It's going to happen because they're starting already. The fact that doctors can't treat you like they can, because now they're afraid. They're afraid of what could happen in losing their license. And I'm sure many of you know that a lot of doctors in states like Louisiana, Tennessee, Mississippi, even Texas are leaving.
Yeah,
so the criminalization will increase. And make no mistake, it's not going to look any different than the ways you've seen it. It's just who is targeted will be different. We're going to see a larger percentage of pregnant people, a larger percentage of queer people being arrested for everything, because they're just bringing back everything we all fought for in the last, I would say, 15 years.
Yeah.
So two things I wanted to lift up, because I want us to end on a positive note.
Okay.
Number one, remember I don't mean to say it because what you're saying is important, but you made this point about the South, Sharice, and how, we shouldn't be under any illusion that this is only going to happen in the South. It's going to happen in the West, and it's going to happen in the North. But also, we need to remember a lot of the achievements, particularly around civil rights, came out of the South. Sure. I mean, we are a people of resilience, resistance, and survival. So we can learn a lot from the South.
Of course. Still,
I wanted before. And we will do what we do, right? Particularly Black women. We will mobilize, we will come together, and we will continue to fight. While Daison is coming back in, I want to give you all an opportunity to talk about how people in your communities can help you and support you in your voter mobilization and your GTOB efforts.
Sure. So we're going to be doing a series of town halls. I talked a little earlier about the one for young adults, but we're going to also be talking as a follow-up to our Black Folks Day on the Hill that we just had in March. We are releasing our legislative report that just kind of talks about some of the things that we talked about with just trying to educate legislators and have our people talk to them about issues that were impacting their own personal lives. But we're going to talk about it because I think what we learned, what we continue to learn, is, it is strategic that our people don't understand what is happening on the local or the state level. Everybody understands the presidential election. There's always a lot of fanfare around that. But there are 438 seats up for election on the federal level this year. 85 state legislative chambers, and in 44 states coming for election. There are 87 ballot measures on the ballot in 32 states. In other words, this is not the moment to stay at the crib. Right. So, we're talking about why it's important for folks not to just be concerned about what's happening with the upcoming presidential election, but we are talking about what is in these series of town halls. And we're considering doing a bit of a hybrid because we want to get as many people, want to reach as many people as we possibly can. And then we have we're also, because up until I think our faith symposium, faith and advocacy symposiums, like October 10th through the 12th, we're talking to the church, we're talking to the religious community, we're talking to we're talking to our people in spiritualist spaces, because these particular people too are folks that politicians pander to when it's election time. Everybody want to come and talk at your church when it's election time. Right. And so just continuing to make sure that our clergy are alert and aware that you are being pimped to an extent and tokenized during this time of the year. And this is when, so if folks haven't come to see you before now, they shouldn't just get an opportunity to come. Right. And talk because they want to talk. Right. So I happen to go to a social justice centered church. And so, so my pastor's super particular about who gets to speak and what they're saying. So I think that that's also going to be really important. So in all of these different spaces, we will be talking about what's happening with the upcoming election, and we will be giving folks more materials and more opportunities to figure out how to be an RJ voter.
Dion.
Yeah, thank you for saying let's end on a positive note. I'm really excited about the number of partnerships that we are engaged in around registering people to vote. There's a LGBTQ spot done by this amazing couple here in New Orleans. Their name are Joe and Tyrone, and they put on the best variety show of entertainers. And for the rest of this year and beyond, we will have a table telling people about the elections and setting up to vote. We've been invited and are hitting some of the rural spots like Luling, Louisiana, St. John's, St. James Parish, and people are really calling us and saying, hey, can y'all come? And so we are going to just jump in a van and head across Louisiana and anywhere we need to go. We're really excited about the work we're going to be doing with youth. Starting to talk to them or work with them as young as 15 years old, because sometimes, we just feel like by the time you make it to 20, your mind may be made up about some things. So we want to really get potential voters excited about what's to come. And so I think for me, it's creating space for people to get information and to engage and feel a part of something larger than what they may have normally been doing. So yeah, we're just doing so much in community. Even for our harm reduction team, we've added spaces, and every time they go out, somebody's going to be there to register to vote, and helping people understand that even if you use, that doesn't take away your basic human rights, and you have a right to vote, right? So I've just been excited about the ways in which people want to engage and the way we are making that possible for people to do. And using former clients as canvassers and formerly incarcerated people to talk about their why you should be voting. So the partnerships have been um, are really exciting for me right now, because that's what we need. And if you're not going to trust me, do you trust somebody else? Do you trust where we are, right? Where that event, the person who puts on that particular event, and what they're doing. And I like the fact that we currently, in 3 4 of the public libraries, distribute Plan B and Narcan, but also registering people to vote, and also giving them information and linking them to other organizations that may be more fitting. Like, we don't have to be the one of the things that Kwame Ture used to say is, if it ain't mine, find somebody else's. Just make sure they're in it for the right reasons.
Mhm.
We never have to be just the one. We just want you to go to somebody and work with them. Whoever fits for you is what we've been encouraging people to do, and that's been a really good tactic.
Thank you. And Dazon, let's bring Dazon back in to talk
Hey.
about how we can support Sister Love's efforts.
So, and thank you all again for your patience and for your grace for the challenges that I'm having. Can you hear me, Regina?
Yes, we can.
Woo, okay, it's better. So, well, I echo everything that Sharice and Dion have offered up. I think where I was trying to go earlier, and this is where support comes in, is our intersectional approach is making sure that we're delivering services, we're educating and engaging in policy and advocacy consistently in and outside of the legislative sessions in Georgia. And we're also doing a lot of research, right? Community led research and partnerships with some of our academic partners. Where we need the most support is in the continued canvassing that we're doing. We will be doing a lot more door knocking closer to the end of the summer, making sure that we've gotten all of the education into the community. So if you're local in Atlanta, or even if you're in counties, because we also are taking our Healthy Love Bus, which is our sexual and reproductive health mobile clinic, out into the rural sectors, into counties like where I'm from, like Peach County, to all of the spots where there are HBCU campuses in Georgia. And we're the only mobile clinic with a PA system. So I think a lot of the support has to be this time around. It's not going to be the digital campaign that gets us to the polls. I really think it's going to be a people to people process. And so whether you're volunteering at Sister Love in Atlanta or wherever you are, showing up, canvassing, educating, participating in the local town halls, the community events. We sponsor one with our policy and advocacy team. We partner up with at least one or two local legislators and hold town hall meetings throughout the election season.
Who knew?
Also,
Yeah.
our websites, our social media, all of the places where you're going to get updates and information that's going to be easily transferable and translatable to the communities that you serve. Those are the biggest things, aside from, making sure that you are continuing to give and support the organizations that are that are all a part of In Our Own Voice. That still matters very, very much. When you think of all of the millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars that are going into one big campaign or something like that, we have Fonnie Willis, who is running this year. We have all of our House legislators that are running this year. And so supporting the people who support us is also something that folks can do to support Sister Love.
Yeah. Regina, can I add one more thing? Just
Yes.
real quick. Um, so often for many years doing this work, people always say, "Oh, you really got to go organize Black women. Oh, you really got to go talk to Black women." Yes and no. Um,
Right.
so I'm asking everybody, like, don't go to the polls by yourself. And in your family, it is. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be like Mary Hooks right now. It is
Mhm.
your duty it is all of our duty to show up and educate our families. Are you talking about to your families, the people closest to you, about the issues? Be the leader in your family.
Mhm.
Be the
As we
be
always are.
Yeah,
Mhm.
get somebody to find about as many family members as you can who can give rides to other people, to young people. In my family, I know before an election, I always get a text, what we doing? Who we voting for? That, you know why we say we, and what we are doing is because as Black people, we don't have the privilege to go alone.
Right.
We
Right.
do not have
Right.
the privilege to go alone. We do this for each other. And I just want to
Right.
last say, I feel I agree in some ways and understand why people feel the way they do about elections, why they feel like I don't want to vote. And voting is not the only answer. A true revolutionary knows that voting is a tactic. It
Yeah.
is just another
Yeah.
tool in your box to get to where you have to go. And if you in any way love your community, love people, and have a sense of human rights and dedication to who we are in this world, then it is our duty. It is our duty to work with our
Yeah.
communities and show up to vote. I could say, well, I ain't voting because this don't affect me, but I know it affects
Right.
somebody. And so it is a way to protect the most vulnerable people in our community. And that is all of our duty, to make sure people are as safe as they can be and also have access to, sadly to say, the little bit that they may get. That is why we do it, to uphold
I mean,
Yeah.
and
some
and
sense of
that's why I
safety
said
and
have a
human rights
plan,
for all of us.
Dion.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's why I said also have a plan.
Yeah.
Plan it
Yeah.
with people because I'm in a state where you can't even have water. You cannot distribute water or food knowing that people are going to be in lines for 3 and 4 and 5, 7, sometimes longer hours. And so having a plan for how we're going to support each other to be out there. The other thing that I think is important is we're always talking about voting and voting in an individualized and compartmentalized place like the United States. People are always voting their own. I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want this and I don't want that because they're voting in self-interest. And I
Yes.
think that we've talked a lot about, oh, you should vote your own interest. No, you should vote the love for your people, for your community,
Mhm.
or even for your
Mhm.
country that doesn't love you back yet, right? That there
Yeah.
is the voting issue itself is not an individual act. It is a collective tactic to securing the people's power. And the more people feel unempowered or disempowered, the less they're going to feel the value in that individualized vote. But if you recognize what the collective power can do, then that's how you vote. And that's how Black women have always voted. And
Right.
that's how we show up. And so follow the leadership of the Black women in your communities. Be the leaders as Black women in your communities, but don't be the only folks. Make sure that you're bringing everybody. Go to work. If you already go out together for lunch, go out and vote together early or on day of. Or sit around the table while you're playing spades and make sure you've filled out your absentee ballots and you're getting them off on time. That add voting into your social and cultural experiences because that is what it is. It is not just a civic duty. It is also a social and cultural experiment and experience that everyone has a right to and should enjoy. Be creative. And the other part is also have answers, have your own stories, have your own dreams and desires for why you want the people you love to vote, especially those who have been disaffected and and feel disenfranchised, like nothing they're going to do around elections matters. All of those kinds of things. Have your own stories of why it does matter, when it has mattered. It's not enough to talk about Dobbs. It's important to talk about the criminalization as it relates to Dobbs. It's important to talk about living wage as it relates to criminalization based on economic struggles and stripes. What we're doing with the housing, what we're doing with harm reduction and substance use, what we're doing with not just intimate partner violence, but gender violence, how all of those things are connected. We all got stories. Use your stories to get your people to vote the interest of those stories and those lived experiences in those communities. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're feeling. Sharice was talking about the DA. Well, you know what? We've got one who is under the gun, right? Everything that they're trying to do. And we're going to say, well, she's a prosecutor and she's putting our people in prison. You know what? She's also making sure your kids aren't going to prison. So what is it that you're concerned about in your whole community, not just in your own life, that this opportunity to vote will hopefully change for everybody, not just
Yeah,
yourself?
yeah, yeah.
I think you know what, we could talk all day. Unfortunately, we're at our time. But before I close, I want to just give everybody opportunity to follow you all, Sharice, Dion, and then Dazon. Please just tell us really quickly what your social handles are. How do people follow you on social media?
Sure. You can follow us again, on our website, sisterreach.org. You can at Sister Reach for Twitter or X or whatever the hell it is now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We'll do a lot on there because we're not really with the establishment.
Yeah,
But
okay.
but we are on Instagram, we are on TikTok, with the handle of Sister Reach. No space, just Sister Reach, one word.
Dion, where can they follow you?
Yeah, so we are on Instagram, and like a lot of people, I'm really not. I don't know. I don't think about X. I also feel like I don't know about that. But on Instagram, we're at WWAV NOLA. We're also still on Facebook, Women with a Vision Inc. on Facebook. Um, what else? And our website is WWAV at
Dash dash no.org.
no.org. I couldn't get it out.
Yep. It's right there underneath for those of you that
Oh,
didn't
look at
catch
there.
it.
Yeah.
Dazon, how can we follow you?
So, two different ways. Sisterlove.org is our two meaning sister love and me. So, sisterlove.org is our website. We just launched a brand new face of our website. It's gorgeous. Make sure you subscribe to the website because that's how you get all of the updates, newsletters, but also policy updates, voting issues coming up. We also are on Instagram at Sister Love Inc. and on what's the other one? Facebook at
TikTok.
Sister Love
Yeah.
Inc. and TikTok. We got some TikToks going at Sister Love Inc. And then we also have a pretty robust YouTube channel where we've posted our podcasts and also a lot of really powerful policy and lived experience conversations at Sister Love Inc. on YouTube. I'm at Dazon Diallo on Instagram and on I don't do Twitter either. And on Dazon Dixon Diallo on Facebook, or it could be Triple D, DDDIALLO on Instagram and TikTok.
Well, if you didn't learn, I don't even know what to tell you. But go back and watch it again. Go visit these websites for more information. Once again, to these incredible freedom fighters. These are people that are ensuring your reproductive justice. Thank you so much. I also want to thank everybody else for joining us. Please know your engagement and your dedication to reproductive justice means a lot to us. And that those of you that are watching, that you can help fuel our collective impact by just getting involved and doing some of the things they said, making a plan, calling your family, helping people understand that it's not, it's bigger than these candidates right now. It's about your niche, your community, that school, critical race theory, whatever the issue is that resonates with you, that's what you're voting on. We delved into a lot today. The unique challenges in the South that voters face, about voting rights, and the pressing issues that drive our communities to the poll. And so we encourage everyone here today to not just carry forward everything that we talked about today, but to take immediate action. Please visit our website, imanrjvoter.org. There you can check your registration status. You can also register to vote, and make sure your family comes there too. And just we want to make sure you are prepared in November, and we want to make sure that your voices are heard in not just this election but beyond. Together, through informed and active participation, we can continue to advocate for justice and equity at the ballot box. Thank you for your commitment and your action. Let's keep this momentum going. Let's keep it strong. If you want to follow my organization, I'm an RJ Book. You can follow us at Black Women's RJ on social media. Actually, you can follow us across all of our socials. That's our organization's website. In Our Own Voice, again, is the collective organization for all of, there's 8 organizations in general. You've heard from 3 of them. Just stay updated on social media and continue to support us on our journey towards reproductive justice at the ballot box and beyond. Together, we can amplify our voices and ensure our rights are protected for generations to come. Thanks again. I'll see you next time. Bye.
I'm a reproductive justice voter because I believe that if we don't have control over our own bodies, we can't have any other freedom that anybody is bound to respect.